Welcome to another episode of Bobble Pod, and happy spring to all our listeners and all our viewers on the
Yay!
podcast. Absolutely love April. Best time of the year for me, my favorite month. We are bringing to you creative and effective digital marketing strategies part 2. So anybody who listened to our last podcast should realize that we did a lengthy talk, all three of us, about creating an effective digital marketing strategy. There are a number of topics that we discussed, and from that we highlighted that was a lot more depth and detail that we could go into to provide our listeners more education and more insights. So this month our focus is doing on the second part of that and going into a lot more of that detail that we want to. Before I begin, obviously I'm Manny Singh, CEO of Bobble Digital.
I'm Claire Daniels, CEO of Trio Media.
Hello everyone, I'm Anushna Takanyan, co-founder and CEO of Burnwe.
It's great to have, obviously, Claire and Anush here today, and I can't wait to kind of really get into it. Before we do that, we're just going to do a quick recap for a couple of minutes on what we did in part 1 and some of the key topics we highlighted. If you haven't listened to it, I suggest pause this recording and go back to the other episode 5, listen to that first, and then come back to this one. Otherwise, some of it might not make as much sense. So some of the topics that we covered in part 1 were why is it important to have a marketing strategy. We all talked about why it's quite important right now, especially with the global pandemic, thinking short term and the impact that's having on specifically SME businesses who might be struggling more financially against, the larger corporations. Where to begin in terms of, you need to look at your business objectives and align them with your marketing objectives, and how to go about creating those objectives, making them smart and measurable. What process you should follow as a business in terms of key elements to consider, such as your audience, your budget, your website and physical presence as an organization, who are the competitors in your market. And that was one of the topics that we highlighted where we could go into a lot more elements when we talk about measurement and reporting and insights. We talked about, once you have your strategy, how do you need to follow up or adapt it? We talked about the difference between making a video without a strategy planned beforehand and those that have introduced video as part of that content, because as you may have realized from a lot of the talks we've done, and without it being intentional, and I think Anush will agree with me here, is that video has played a prominent role in some of the discussions that we discussed, because it is such a key valuable channel moving forward. We talked about how to create a video marketing strategy in line with your overall digital marketing strategy, defining your positioning and messaging as an organization, which Claire did an amazing piece about in the last talk. Defining, choosing your target audience and how to do that, and how you can understand who your customers are and how to identify them online. Understanding which digital channels or what wider marketing channels work best for you as an organization. And finally, we talked about basically how to calculate budget, because we know that it is a pandemic. Businesses are stretched. Some are benefiting from recovery loans here in the UK, but from a global perspective, businesses are stretched in terms of budget. So how to make that budget go further and how to make it utilized. So that's a quick roundup from our part 1. Again, please do go back and view it if you haven't, to get a recap. And today we've got a number of topics again that we're going to go into a lot more detail to really kick that off. And the first topic we're really going to kick off with, and I hope we can expand on this, is how to create that compelling story. I know, Claire, you really went into a lot of detail in terms of defining your positioning and messaging, but I think a lot of it comes down to, as businesses need to create that compelling story in terms of for their users and customers to follow.
Yeah, so something that I wanted to talk about is a model that we use a lot with our clients that really helps them to define that storytelling and the positioning and messaging of the business. So it's developed by Gartner and it's called a positioning framework. So you will actually find it if you go online and Google that, Gartner positioning framework. We'll also share it with you for anyone that watches the podcast on YouTube. You'll be able to see it there. But I am just going to quickly walk through the steps. So if anyone wants to grab a notepad and pen and start thinking about it, hopefully this will be a really useful exercise for you. So the first thing to think about is who your product, solution, proposition, whatever it may be, is for. So who is your target customer? And you really need to think about getting specific here, because we want you to find your niche. Because when you find your niche, that storytelling element is going to become so much easier, because you know exactly who you're creating content for. So, for example, if you're B2B, it's not for businesses or for SMEs or enterprise clients, it's, what sector are these businesses in? Who is the person within that business? Really thinking about who that person is that your proposition is for. And following on from that, what is their need? So looking at providing a statement of their need or opportunity. So for example, at Trio Media, so we are for small businesses that need a marketing partner and they need a resource. And sorry, I know I've just said small businesses and I've encouraged you to be specific, but I'm just being quick with it here. But looking for that need in terms of they need to outsource their marketing. They need their marketing to be effective. They need to generate sales from their online business, for example. And then we go on to look at a want for them as well. So what do they want? And the way that need or opportunity is, well, I need online sales and I need someone to help me do that, but I want to work with a company that I trust and that I get on well with. So you can kind of clearly define the different expectations of your prospective customer. The model then goes through looking at what actually is the product or service you provide, so naming it, and what category it sits in. So the product is what is it that you're providing to the market, and what is the compelling reason to buy it? If you had to think of one key benefit and make a statement on this is what it does, what would that thing be? And again, you really look at being concise with this, taking back the layers to get to that real crux of what it is that's going to resonate with people. We then go into unlike, and we look at a competitor at this stage. So unlike your primary competitor, you do what? What's your statement of primary differentiation? So we're looking at the competitor that you are most similar to. We've spoken a lot about competition, and that's something we will be touching upon more again in this episode. So you will always have kind of direct and indirect competitors, because you've probably got someone you're most similar to in your space, but you've also got competitors that you aspire to be like, that are kind of not in your current area at the moment. But really encouraging you to understand who is that key competitor that you're kind of going to lose the most business to? Who is that person, and how are you different from them? We do find that this is an area that businesses struggle with, because they go, well, I'm not that different. And don't get me wrong, sometimes people know exactly why they are different, but you also get in kind of non-disruptive industries, a lot of businesses that go, well, yeah, it's this or it's that. Is it price? Are you able to be cheaper than your competition? Are the quality of your materials better? Are you different just because of who runs the business? Is the CEO, is the founder of the business someone with a unique personality or lots of experience? Is it that you have certain sustainability credentials or other type of qualifications or accreditations that set you apart? Understand what that key differentiating point between the alternative provider in the market is, and sell that thing. So by the time you've gone through this framework, we always add on an and at the end, and your and is your final statement of what's something that hasn't fit into this framework that we really want to talk about, we really want to add on to. So and what? And we help save businesses money, or we help save the environment, or whatever it may be. So really making sure that you can still get that piece in there, and that all put together really starts building out, this is what all your messaging should be around. You now know exactly who your customer is when you start looking at audience and how to define your target audience and how to communicate with them, because you understand what their need is. You also understand what they want, personally, what they're hoping to get out of the relationship working with you. You understand your competition, because you're going to have gone and reviewed that, and really knowing who are people buying instead of me. You understand what differentiates you from the competition, and that is what makes up the messaging that you put out there. So going through that model is a really, really useful exercise for business of any size, whether you're a startup, whether you're an enterprise business. I've done this with a range of organizations, established 8-figure turnover businesses, but I've also done it with startups, who are just getting going. And it's always helped to clarify where we should go with the messaging and the storytelling. And so I'm interested now to kind of pass that out to my co-hosts around the storytelling piece and see how you've maybe used models or elements of this to help create storytelling in the work that you're doing as well.
First of all, want to say that what you have shared is actually really amazing. And just to add to this, I would say that for the video, storytelling is the most important part. I mean, we can create a strategy, have everything in their place, the goals, target audience, everything ready. But if there is no story behind your video, it actually would not catch the clients. So basically, when we are just starting, like a lot of clients, when wanted to create their first story, the first thing that actually they are doing, they are trying to give a lot of information about their business in their videos. But what actually happened is they are making very boring to viewers, so they pretty not interested to hear a lot of information about businesses, about the product. What they actually is more interested to hear is how that product can help them. So here's how storytelling is coming to help and give a solution of this, because video storytelling is a marketing tactic that actually helping you to tell a story behind your brand, behind your product, behind your company. And it's helping to get the heart of the clients, because you can be emotional, be connected to your brand, get them to be interested to hear more, to watch your video again. So basically, I would like to share today a few, let's say, techniques of how to create a video which tells a story. So first of all, it's creating a strong arc. So you need to have really effective beginning, middle, and end. Each of these parts are so important in the video. There's no like only the beginning. It's important because you need to catch and grab the attention of your viewers. Every part is important, because especially your call to action is going to be at the end of the video. So you need to grab your clients till the end so they can see the call to action and react to them. So in this case, I would suggest to have to make it easy for your audience to follow your story. So it needs to be very appealing. It needs to be very catchy. I would suggest also just another tip to make your characters very lovable and reliable. No matter they are live characters or animated characters, they need to be very cute, and so people could be so interested to hear them, to be connected with them. Another tip is to make it visually very beautiful, because it's not only about the story, but your video actually needs to be very catchy for people to watch it till the end or want to watch it again. As I said again, and I will want to mention once again, you need to focus on emotions. And by saying emotions, it's not necessarily need to be only warm emotions. You can have anger, you can have, I don't know, joy, sadness, everything. But all these emotions are so important to highlight in your videos, so people need to be connected with them. And the last maybe tip on this, I would suggest to be very natural and informal. Of course, unless your video is not only for the target audience, which are very corporate and stuffy, you don't need to sound stuffy and corporate. Just relax, be informal, be friendly in your videos, because that's the way that people could want to hear you more. Do not need to just force with your voice or just be so fake. Be natural, be friendly. This is maybe the most important part for video storytelling, so people could really love what you are creating and want to share it after watching it.
That's amazing, and that's such a good tip, and it made me